Hi, everyone. Let's talk about why the inner critic is not you, why we are often taught to doubt ourselves, to internalize the oppression that we experience in the society as Black women. Let's get into it. If you're new here, my name is Marissa Price. I am a liberatory healing practitioner, helping Black women rise after trauma, externalize what we experience, come back into our full selves, our full understanding, our full authenticity, despite what we are experiencing. And there's a lot that is going on. So, just to name that, if you're here live, thank you so much for joining. As always, if you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay as well. I just want to check in and see how everyone is doing because, again, there's a lot happening. Just saw another thing in Minnesota that has happened. So there's a lot. There's a lot happening at this time. And I think even like more of a reason to be conscious, right, of the ways that we're talking to ourselves during these times, to be the place of self compassion as we're navigating so much uncertainty, so much chaos at one time. It is a lot. And so just to celebrate the fact, right, that you're getting through, right, in whatever way that looks like for you. And so the inner critic is not you, right? And so just to name that, once we're able to see that clearly, that if you do deal with self-doubt, if you do deal with negative self-talk, which a lot of us do, being able to separate that voice, which you have probably internalized from someone who was highly critical of you, from your own voice, right? Your own authentic voice. And I always like to say, like, we don't come here criticizing ourselves because we don't. And so that means along the way, we've picked up what other people have told us, right? Family members and school environments, media. We've picked up what people have said about us, and now we've internalized it and we're repeating it to ourselves on a loop over and over again. So every time we make a mistake, every time something falls short, here the inner critic goes again, right? Criticizing us for simply being human, right? Making mistakes is part of the human experience. But because we have internalized these voices that have held us to such a high standard, that oftentimes is not a human standard, right? Given what we experience in the society, we start to replay that over and over again and start to criticize ourselves, right? You should have been able to do this. You should have been able to push through. You should have been able to get the A on the test. Like, what is wrong with you? This narrative that keeps repeating internally really does a number on our self esteem, right? And our self worth and our ability to like see ourselves as like worthy of the things that we deserve. And so that's why I'll be speaking about this tonight. And if you have experienced this, and if you have any strategies to share on ways that you're healing from this, from negative self talk, maybe releasing critical messages that you've picked up from other people. If you like to share how you're putting them down, please let us know. Right. And so just to say that, no, you're not too sensitive, right? You shouldn't be doing more. Again, there's so much happening at this time. It's like the fact that we are getting through day to day. I just had like a business planning session in my Black women freelancers community last night. And this is what we were talking about. Like, a lot of us are having to do it day by day, even week by week can be a lot on our systems, on our psyches. And so, even the fact that you are getting through day to day should be celebrated. You are doing enough just to validate that, right? And no, you're not making it up. The harm, the mistreatment, right? The level of vitriol that is existing a lot, right, in the atmosphere these days. Like, you're not making it up. That impact that it's having on you. So, just to say that, um, and yes, right. So that voice that you're hearing, the inner critic, is not your intuition. So just to say that. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for joining. Leo 88 Lovely. Thank you for making space for this conversation. You are welcome. Thank you for being here. Right. And so that is not your intuition. It isn't who you are, right? Your self doubt is not who you are. It's not a piece of your identity. It is a voice that you have internalized, which means it can be removed, right? It will take time, it will take practice, it will take having a safe place to learn the tools, which I'll be talking about, silence your inner critic, coming up that I'll be facilitating starting on Sunday, right? It will take all of these things, but the point is that you can unlearn it, right? You can unlearn it, you can release it. It doesn't have to be like a permanent part of who you are to talk negatively about yourself to yourself. Once you understand that you can create space between the critical voice and your authentic self, you start to have that space to be able to be like, oh, I have the agency, right? I have the choice to now speak to myself kindly. Even if no one ever did that for me or to me, right? This can be the first time that you're hearing nice things about yourself. And I have to say that, right? Because it's true. This could be the first time that you're hearing nice things, kind things said about you. And it can be from you, right? That counts too. Because we're unlearning, right, such deep patterns, generational harm and trauma often that has just gone on, right? And a lot of us are cycle breakers, refusing to repeat these cycles within our families, within ourselves, to criticize ourselves for simply being human, right? For simply being able to like make a mistake and it be okay, right? And for you to tell yourself, it's okay. I'm learning, right? This is just part of the human experience. There's nothing wrong. I don't need to shame myself. I don't need to tell myself I should have done it this way and that way, right? There are lessons to be gained, of course, throughout life, but to sit there and constantly badger yourself, right? And take yourself into an even deeper shame spiral. That's what I want to help you interrupt, right? Because it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to keep repeating messages to yourself that are harmful. And once you realize that you can start substituting things that are harmful with things that support you, that are affirming, that are compassionate, right? You start to find the space to heal from what you've experienced. And so just to say that, right? And so the inner critic is learned. So the inner critic is part of what we experience, right? Again, from media, family members, school environments, work environments, which I talk a lot about. They're not innate to who we are. If anything, I want you to walk away with, right? We do not come here criticizing ourselves. And so these are voices that we've taken on. These are criticisms that people have levied at us to try to break us, to try to break our self esteem, our self confidence, our self image. And so these are real, right? And so we internalize them often when we are isolated, when we don't have people around us to kind of like check with, is that really what she said? Right? Am I really understanding what just happened? When we don't have space to do that with someone, we have a tendency to internalize what we're experiencing. And so the more that you can externalize, right, the harm, the mistreatment, that makes space for healing to come back into who you are authentically outside of what you're experiencing. And so some sources of this criticism could be, again, toxic work environments, gaslighting, being dismissed, having your feelings invalidated constantly, family systems shaped by survival, right? And so we know like the systems at play can really create these conditions that we experience. Racism, right? Sexism, constant scrutiny. And so doubting yourself could be a strategy to stay safe. If you had to take on kind of the voice of people who criticized you in order to stay safe in some of these environments, that may be still on replay within you. And it's important to know that you are the one, right, taking your agency and power back to press stop on that track that keeps repeating, right? You don't have to keep repeating these things to yourself. And it can feel kind of like new and uncomfortable and kind of like awkward at first to start substituting things that support you with things that you're used to doing because it feels familiar to your body. To repeat to yourself, right? I'm a failure. I should have done it this way. Like, what is wrong with me? That is a familiar pattern that has been ingrained probably for some time. And so stepping out of that is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable, but knowing that you can do it, right? That you have the power to do that over time, little by little, start substituting things that actually support you, that actually honor your humanity. right? I don't have to do it right all the time. I'm allowed to make mistakes. I tried my best at this, right? It didn't work out how I had hoped, but I tried my best. I poured everything into this thing, right? And start like changing your internal monologue when it comes to criticism can be helpful. And so dehumanization is huge, right? Hello, Marissa. I'll be speaking to Marissa tomorrow at what time? 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. And yes, Marissa is a guest facilitator for Silence Your Inner Critic, week 2. So if you are someone who is interested in using creativity or kind of like art therapy type practices to heal and start to separate who you are authentically from the voice of criticism, you'll want to tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll be chatting about how we are unlearning self criticism at this time in our lives, right? 2025 was a lot for a lot of us. Um, and what you don't want on top of like something like a year or a time that's really heavy is you repeating things to yourself that is making that even more difficult internally, right? So, given what we're experiencing, and there's a lot happening, the thing that you do have control over is how you speak to yourself, the level of compassion that you offer yourself, right? Not going down the shame spiral of the shoulds and just letting things be as they are, right? Leaning into your agency to go a different direction maybe in the future, but you don't have to criticize yourself for what you did, right? You can take accountability if you need to, right? If you were the one who did something wrong. Um, but you don't have to continue to badger yourself over and over again internally. Again, given what we're experiencing, it's important to realize that you do have agency, you do have power in this. You don't have to continue this internal monologue that's trying to bring you down all the time. You can change it. You can really change it. Hello, welcome, Havana. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining, Sade. Welcome. Thank you for joining, as always. But yeah, I want to check in and see how y'all are doing. Again, there's a lot happening. I just saw what happened in Minnesota. And that's another thing that's kind of throwing me off today. But it just feels like day after day after day, right? There's a lot of things coming at us from all different angles. And so, again, like going back to the topic, the thing that we do have control over in the midst of this uncertainty and chaos is how we speak to ourselves, is the level of compassion we give to ourselves, right? Being the safe place in the midst of all of this chaos, I think is really important during these times too. Yes, right. And so, why we may internalize self doubt, right? So, being questioned, being minimized, being punished for speaking up can lead to these feelings that we experience, right? To this internal monologue that is doubting us, that is questioning us, that is kind of bullying us, honestly, from the inside. If we were in an environment where we have been bullied or we have been dehumanized, or we have not been shown the level of grace and compassion that we deserve, we can internalize that voice from someone else, right? That is bullying us, criticizing us, being rewarded for overfunctioning, being told to be strong instead of being supported. I love that y'all are saying hello to each other. I love that. Yes. Um, but yeah, this can lead to chronic vigilance, self monitoring, overcorrection, all these things that our nervous system does when we experience harm. So that can be real as well. Right. And so the system taught you to question yourself, not because you were wrong, but because you were visible so often. And so I think we talked about this, Marissa, too, the fear of visibility last time during our conversation. That can be like woven into these things, the fear of visibility, of standing out, of being yourself. If you have experienced punishment or bullying, right, during a time in the past where you have shown up in that way. And so just to say, right? Nothing is wrong with you. You're not broken. Your body learned what it needed to do to survive, which is often to shrink, to come into kind of a shell, to protect yourself, to criticize yourself, right? Before the person who was highly critical of you got a chance to do it. That can be real, right? And so, yes, right? This can be a protective response to harm as well. So, restoring your internal sense of safety is so important, realizing that that is possible. Hey, Jamila, good to see you. And also not being allowed to make mistakes, Marissa, not being allowed to be human because Black women are expected to withstand everything and not show emotions. I have been criticizing myself, yes, for thank you for this. Yes. Yeah. Not being allowed to make mistakes. Hmm. To be human. That's so real. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. And again, given what we're experiencing, I think it makes sense just to have just so much self compassion, right? So much empathy for ourselves as we are navigating so many different things, to sit with the fact, like, I am making it through. Celebrating that, right, is so important. I appreciate you sharing that. And that is so real. Ivana says, I'm tired of other Black people labeling Black women as strong, but a lot of Black women don't want that word strong being attached to their identity. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah, I did a video on that. The trope, right? That we're just expected to withstand anything and everything that comes at us, to hold everything up for everyone else so often while we are being harmed, being mistreated, right? Having all these things thrown at us. And I think a lot of us are at that point where it's not sustainable anymore, given what we're experiencing, right? For that to be a part of our identity, we're releasing that, right? Because that's dehumanizing, to have to like take on all of these things for everyone else, for our labor to be exploited, right? For us not to be seen as fully human, with the different systems at play that are just on overdrive, right? Misogynoir being one of them. It's a lot. It's a lot. And we're at that point, like a breaking point, it feels like, that we can't be the strong one anymore because we're suffering, right? We're struggling. The support that had been in place, the little that there was, right, is now gone. And we've seen that in 2025 with everything being, a lot of things being ripped from us. We're just at this point where it's not sustainable to take on that label that has been like forced upon us for so often of strong, right? Because that is a trope rooted in misogynoir. Yeah. Yeah, and only take it on, Marissa, but smile while doing it. OMG, yes. Yeah. Learning self compassion is a new skill for me. I'm ready for a soft life, and nobody in my life wants me to rest, but I'm done and I'm going to find my sacred peace. Whew. Thank you for sharing that and welcome. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Ooh. And to that point, nobody in my life wants me to rest. I appreciate you sharing that. Um, right. The reactions from other people, when we simply, it's a human right to rest, right? We have to rest in order for our lives to be sustainable. But when we start like taking out the enormous amount of labor, energy that we've been contributing to a space, people get really upset, right? People get really mad. And the narrative around our labor is often that it's worth nothing, right? But everybody wants a piece of it. And so it can't be worth nothing if everybody wants it. And we're seeing like the reactions to it when we start to pull away because we can't anymore, right? We can't like contribute this amount of energy, time, labor that we had in the past because these times it's just not like it's just not sustainable. right? For us to do that. Um, and I love you bringing that up. Like, thank you so much, right? People's reactions to that when we start to establish boundaries, when we start to take our time back for ourselves, carve out space for our peace, right? Within this society that tells us that these things are not for us, that we don't get to have peace, that we don't get to have rest, that we have to keep repeating these messages of harm to ourselves, of self doubt, of self criticism, right? So I really appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. 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 It's even worse when some Black women, family members, and maybe even parents label their daughter or daughters as strong. Yep. Yeah. Whew. Jamila says, who gave us a strong Black woman label? Who threw that on us? I'm asking for real. That's a really good question. And I know that it's rooted in enslavement, right? And so, and I would love to do, I had an idea to do like a podcast episode on this. But Black women's bodies, right? Throughout enslavement, we were supposed to carry everything, like literally and like emotionally, like be the source for everyone else, be the regulator for everyone else. And it started in enslavement. And so we see this trope being carried through right in 2026 now. And it still exists, and we're still repeating it to each other because we've internalized this lie, this myth that is rooted in misogynoir, right? The specific hatred of Black women. And so we see that through line, right? Um, of us not being able to rest, to take our time, to have peace, to have things that we enjoy, for our identity to be separate from what we do, right? That was off limits to us. Other people told us, right? Enforced it with violence. And so that's why this feels so triggering to a lot of people, right? When they see us take our labor back, when they see us take our time back for ourselves to rest unapologetically, it triggers people because for centuries we have been placed in this category of being the holders for everybody else while we're suffering, right? While our labor is being exploited. And I think a lot of us, it just feels like at this time we can't do that anymore. It is literally unsustainable. And so people are going to have to move through their being triggered, their discomfort, right? And sit with the fact that we're not doing that anymore. Hmm. We barely had oxygen, and now they are giving us, whew, this is so real. They're giving us carbon dioxide, acting like we should be able to breathe. It is not humanly possible. We are not super women or magic beings. We are enough as is. Thank you for that. Yeah. 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 And we see all these tropes, right? Rooted in misogynoir, anti blackness, sexism, right? Misogyny. We see the roots of these things. And I really appreciate that so many Black women creators on YouTube are sharing, right, their experiences openly so that we can begin to see, I mean, not begin, but really see the through lines between what we have experienced and what we are surviving, right? And so I really want to like emphasize with everything that we are experiencing, everything in the world, being able to know that please speak to yourself gently, right? That is within your control, your locus of control. Being able to talk to yourself nicely, to be the kind person to yourself, to be the gentle person to yourself, even if you've never experienced it. It is just essential during these times, right? To be that safe place for yourself. Because to your point, and thank you so much for sharing this, right? We barely had oxygen and now they're giving us carbon dioxide, acting like we should be able to breathe. Oof. Yes. Yeah, Jamila says, I have dropped Black Girl Magic from my space, never wanted it. I am enough. Thank you for that. Yeah. Alicia Renice has a really good video on Black Girl Magic on her channel as well. Yes. It's a lot. It's a lot. So just to know, as has been mentioned, right, we're enough. Just to say that, right, how you are, there's a lot of pressure, especially with the new year starting, to set resolutions to try to be this new person. Um, but just knowing that who you are, what you already bring is enough. I think the times of performing, right, that takes a lot of energy to perform for other people, right, to put on the mask over and over again. And these times, there's not a lot of energy to spare, right? And so we're really having to preserve every ounce that we can for ourselves. So yeah, love Alicia Renaissance music, very healing. I agree. I agree. Yes. Yes, y'all. So I'm just looking through my notes. There's a lot going on again. I just saw what happened in Minnesota. And so that's throwing me off today. I was trying to center myself today, and then I saw that, and it's a lot. Something I was talking about with someone yesterday, it's very difficult to plan when there's constant chaos happening externally, right? We can have these tools that we've went over on my channel and my programs to help us feel the sense of groundedness. But when it is chaos after chaos after chaos, it can be difficult, just to say that. And that's why these spaces are so important, just for us to, right, talk with each other and connect, right? And say that you are not the only one experiencing this. If you are finding it difficult to have a sense of feeling like anchored in anything, when there is so much happening, right? There's so much chaos happening. And so just to know, as we wrap up this video, right, that you have the power to speak kindly to yourself. Despite everything that is happening, you have the power to grant yourself grace, self-compassion, to be your own refuge within what we're experiencing. And I will be facilitating a 4-week group healing circle called Silence Your Inner Critic. And we start this Sunday. And it is a second cohort. So if you would like to join, here's the link. And sliding scale pricing is available. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me, hello@marissaprice.me. And I'll put this in the chat as well. Hi, thank you for joining. It is my birthday, and I'm so glad to be listening to this conversation tonight. Reflection time is always so grounding. Thank you so much for this. I appreciate this, and happy birthday. Wishing you a happy birthday. Yes. Right, and so just to know that the internal narrative, if it is one of self-doubt, self-criticism, being harsh with yourself, feeling burnt out, being in toxic environments that you may have internalized what people have said to you, know that it's within your grasp, it's within your locus of control, it's within your power to start talking to yourself kindly, even if you've never done it before, even if you've never heard kind words said to you. before, which is real, you can be that person for yourself to speak kindly to you, right? You can set the standard for how you're supposed to be spoken to by offering yourself that level of grace, self compassion, and starting to silence that inner critic, right? That is not you, right? It's not your voice. So please walk away with this video, from this video, with that message, right? It's not your voice. The critic is not you. And once you're able to see that, which Marissa did such a fabulous job in cohort 1 with her art activity, to just have us display to ourselves what the critic looks like and who we are. So we can start to see, oh, this critic is someone that I know, right? For me personally, going through that activity, someone in my family. And this is me over here, right? Trying to hype myself up, trying to like celebrate myself. And so creating that distance between the critic and who you are authentically can be a really great way to start healing, because you realize it's not you saying those messages to yourself, right? It's not you doubting yourself. It's not you criticizing yourself. It's a voice that you have internalized that is able to once again be externalized. You have the power to do that. Yeah, yes, Leo 88, lovely. I think the term strong Black woman might be a coping mechanism as well. So many of us have seen the women in our family labor tirelessly and can't help but see them as strong. Thank you for that. Yeah. Coping mechanism. Yeah. Yes. And just throughout, right, in our families, generationally, not having the option to rest has been presented as off limits. It has been withheld from us deliberately. Taking on that, right, as you said, as a coping mechanism for what we're experiencing within these systems, to try to make sense, right, of this harm, this level of harm. They do deserve rest and care, and it seems easy to internalize it as a sort of armor as well. Yes, that is such a good point. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. As a sort of armor. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to write that down. That is a really good point. Yeah. Marissa says that's such a good point. Some of these harmful phrases have been put on as armor. Yes. Yeah. And what's coming up is like cognitive dissonance, right? Will we know the truth of what we're experiencing, and yet we're in these systems day after day after day, right? There's a way for us to try to make sense of being within these systems that are oppressive, right? That do not view us as fully human. And I can see that being a way to try to bridge that gap, right? Making sense of day in and day out, right? Not having space to rest, not honoring your humanity. And it can absolutely be a survival response and coping mechanism. I gave my inner critic a name after working with a life coach. I called her Karen, and it feels great to say, "Shut up, Karen," when she gets out of pocket. That is great. That is such a great tip. Thank you for sharing that. Naming your inner critic. That's a really great way to, again, like separate yourself from this voice that's criticizing you, doubting you, shaming you sometimes, putting a name to that critic. That's a really good piece of advice. Thank you for that. Marissa says, thank you. I was able to participate in another one of your programs and was so transformative. So I'm grateful to be able to share the tools that have helped me. Thank you for this. I appreciate that. I truly do. Yeah, that has been the highlight of 2025 for me, is to be able to facilitate group healing programs. I think we learn a lot when we are in community with each other. and we can share and we can reflect and we can be open and transparent about the things that we have experienced in our journeys navigating all of this, there's just a deeper level of healing, community building that I really enjoy facilitating group spaces. So I'm really happy to hear that that was transformative for you, Marissa. Thank you for that. Havana says another issue that pisses me off is that some people think it's normal for Black women, especially young Black women in their 20s and early 30s, to slave themselves to death to receive money from a job. Yes, yeah. It's more to life than being a damn slave to a dead end minimum slave wage job. Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's just so deep, right? It's so many layers to it. It's so many connections. And it's all these systems working in tandem to try to tell us our value, our worth, what we're supposed to be okay with, what we're supposed to accept, right? Being in these workplaces that do not value us, where we are talked to so poorly, right? Not compensated adequately. It's just layers on top of layers on top of layers. Yeah. Yeah. And so, yes, y'all, I do want to say I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the things that you always contribute to this space, whether you're here live on my streams or commenting on the replays. It really does a lot, right? For me, as someone who's creating these things behind the scenes, as well as just like the community atmosphere for us to be able to share what we're experiencing with each other, to let us know we are not alone. Hey, Winsome, good to see you. Please subscribe to Winsome's channel. Big up yourself. Always good to see you here. Thank you for joining. But yeah, leaving you with, right, the inner critic is not you. That internal monologue of self doubt, of shame, of trying to criticize everything you do, of trying to tell you that you don't get a chance to be a human being and make mistakes. A lot of that is rooted in oppression. And so just knowing that, right, creating distance from that voice that is criticizing you and your authentic self that is allowed to make mistakes, right? So often we don't get a chance to make mistakes, and other people do. That is part of the human experience. And so by allowing yourself the chance to make mistakes, you're so welcome. So welcome. To make mistakes, to grow, to have compassion, right, with what you're experiencing, you are rehumanizing yourself. Right? You're rehumanizing yourself. You're not dehumanizing yourself. And that is so incredibly important during these times with everything that we're experiencing. And so, again, I will be going live with Marissa T, who is a special guest facilitator for Silence Your Inner Critic in week 2. We'll be going live tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. If you'd like to join us just for our personal experiences of releasing criticism, releasing shame, coming into our authenticity. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to that tomorrow if you can join. And thank you for being here live. Those of you who are here, thank you for watching the replay. And I will see y'all then. Hope you'll have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much. Bye, y'all.